AM 590, KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. It's time for the Metro's only racing talk show. The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Buddy Ray.
Well, good morning, race fans, and welcome to the Front Stretch. Again, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. If you haven't gotten your appointment set yet today, November 2nd is the big day for the Racing with the Stars. It's the charity organization that Buddy Ray Jones puts on. Does a fantastic job with it, and it's your opportunity to go and race go-karts at Joe's Karting with some of the best dirt track drivers in the area and also some pretty cool celebrities. He was just telling me last night on I-80 Speedway that he's got some new guys that are tentatively going to be on board for this. So go to 7th Annual Racing with the Stars on Facebook, and you can get all of the details and information for the Racing with the Stars. It's a fantastic event. Joining me in studio today, since Buddy was out racing last night, he is resting comfortably. We'll see how comfortable he is. We'll talk to him next weekend about his results at I-80 and see how that all went. But Dirk Huston joining us, a contestant for the Pick'ems contest, becoming a good fill-in for the show when needed. And Dirk, how you doing this morning?
We're glad to be here and awake, and after that melee last night.
I tell you, that was something else. That was one where you went to watch a race and a fight broke out.
Something like that. I think you got that backwards. But, yeah.
Boy, I could not believe my eyes that post race. I was sitting there typing up the results on Facebook, and all of a sudden there were things being thrown, there was cars being destroyed, and then Matt Kenseth. What is?
Well, he had somebody he could finally maybe beat up. Yeah.
We got a lot to talk about today. We'll briefly touch on the results from Kansas because those results, I think, fed into a lot of what happened last night. We'll talk about last night's results from Charlotte. We'll also talk with Stan Cisar in turn number 2 to get the update on the Nebraska 360 race last night at I-80 Speedway. In turn number 3, we're going to recap some of the rule changes and news and notes in NASCAR, and we're efforting talking to Anthony Ainsley, the voice of the SLMR series, who again had a race last night at I-80 Speedway, and we'll hopefully talk to him about that and get a season-wide update for the SLMR series. And in turn number 4, we'll wrap it all up. So we got a pretty relaxed show today, and we want to hear from you about last night's action. 402-573-0590. You can give us a call on the ESPN hotline, 402-573-0590. My big question to everybody is, should there be fines levied for last night's melee/brawl, whatever went down post-race? I want to get your opinion on should there be some fines. But before we get to all of that, get your phone lines ready to go, though. Craig's ready to take your phone call, 402-573-0590. Let's talk Charlotte results. The man who had the least amount of pressure on him last night was Joey Logano because of the brand new chase format, able to come home with a win. Kyle Larson was hunting him down those last few laps, and had that been a 167, how many laps did they run that night? 267. Had that been 269, 300 to 270, I think maybe Kyle would have got him because he was coming. And that just goes to show you that kid is on fire. And he looked really good last night for a run there.
Well, where we're at in the chase here, catching them is one thing, passing them is another.
That's true. Kyle Busch able to come home third at Kansas, which was really, really shocking because that man has had nothing but troubles at Kansas Speedway. Won the Nationwide Series race on Saturday in a very dominant fashion, but the entire time you just kept waiting. When is it going to happen? When is something going to break loose? When is he going to spin out of turn 2? It never happened.
After the race, he said, I got to win. I just don't get the trophy.
Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 car comes home in 4th place. Carl Edwards rounds out your top 5. Ryan Newman, Denny Hamlin, Austin Dillon, Paul Menard, and Brian Vickers all round out your top 10 finishers for the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway. Notables, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this, 3 guys that frankly are a little shocking they had this bad of days. Now, it was tire issues, so that's the reason why they had bad days. Jimmy Johnson had a
not a tire issue.
Right, he got
picked on.
There might have been contact between him and Greg Biffle. He went sliding through the back stretch and made contact with the inside wall. His day, they went back into the garage and worked feverishly on getting that car back together, which they were able to. So he got back out there, but only able to finish 40th, worst of the chasers. And his teammate Dale Jr., while leading, he blew a tire. And Brad Keselowski also, I believe he had tire issues and lost the tire and finished 36th. So Jimmy Johnson 40th, Dale Jr. 39th, and Brad Keselowski finished 36th. Casey Kane, also another one of those chasers that had a bad day, finished 22nd. Now the reason why that's important is because they really needed a win last night, or at least a big finish, maybe even a second place, third place finish to salvage their points, because as we walk into Talladega next Sunday, that's the last race of the contender round. We then eliminate 4 drivers, and 3 of those 4 drivers I just talked about are the 3 that are on the elimination bubble right now. And to talk about 6-time champion Jimmy Johnson being eliminated from this, I'm surprised, but then again, I'm kind of not. He hasn't had a very typical 48 Jimmy Johnson season, but you still expect those guys to turn it on in the chase and start knocking off wins.
Well, you're waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
Something good's going to happen to these guys. You're just waiting for it. But to expect it to happen at Talladega is not the way to look at it.
He's good. He's very good, but Talladega is a crapshoot. And he's one of those guys that's really has the strategy of hang out in the back until things calm down, and then we'll make our move with about 10 to go.
Well, the fact that he's got his teammate there in the same boat that he's in, I think you'll see those 2 guys hooked up all night.
Absolutely. So results from last night, we got a second guy that doesn't have to worry about a thing from Talladega, and I kind of wonder if maybe Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick are going to run half a lap behind everybody else. You know, the competitors in them will say, we're going to get up there and mix it up, but there is zero benefit to those guys finishing first to 42nd. There's zero benefit if they finish first or last.
Well, if they finish first, Jimmy Johnson or Dale's not going to, which means they're not moving on. So there's a huge benefit to finishing first.
Well, Jimmy and Dale are both 26 points out. If Joey and Kevin were to win the race, and Jimmy and Dale were to finish 3rd, 4th, top 5, top 10, they may make the. That's it. That's where you've got me there. You're absolutely right there. But and that would be where it would be handy for Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano to make sure that Jimmy Johnson doesn't hit his hot streak as he normally does during the chase. Results from last night: Kevin Harvick able to get the win. The entire time I'm watching that race, I'm just waiting. Where's the tire issue? Where's the lug nut issue? Where's whatever else this team can invent to have to come back down pit road and make repairs and put Kevin outside of the top 15. And that's not any kind of a bash on Kevin or the team. They just had these weird mechanical issues that, where do these things come from?
Well, gremlins are gremlins, but I think one of the things he's benefiting from is the fact that the boss man, Tony's gone ahead and put his pit crew over there.
Yeah,
I really
definitely
think that's been a big plus for Kevin.
Definitely. Jeff Gordon came home in 2nd place. Jamie McMurray, very, very good run, very strong run for Jamie Mack, came home in 3rd. Joey Logano, 4th. Kyle Busch came home in 5th. Kyle Larson, Ryan Newman, Carl Edwards, Denny Hamlin, and Casey Kane all round out your top 10 finishers. Worst of the chasers, once again, Dale Jr. is the worst. Finished 20th. Not a bad finish, but when you're in the chase, you can't be the worst of the chasers 2 weeks in a row. Matt Kenseth had contact with Brad Keselowski during a restart. He finished 19th. I believe he was one lap. Nope, he was the last car on the lead lap. Greg Biffle, Jimmy Johnson, and Brad Keselowski. So those 4 drivers. Dale finished 20th, Kenseth 19th, Jimmy 17th, and Brad 16th. And those are the drivers. Those are the 4 drivers that are in risk of being eliminated, as they are right now, pending any kind of points penalties that we may see, which, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Matt Kenseth is 1 point out of the elimination bubble, out of 8th place. Brad Keselowski is 19th, 19 points out. Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr. are both tied, 26 points out. And as Dale, they both have 3 wins. So as it would stand right now, Jimmy Johnson would have that tiebreaker if those 2 were to tie and need a tiebreaker to get to figure out who's moving on to the next round. But Brad Keselowski, who'd have thought that we'd be talking about him possibly being eliminated?
Well, let's go back a couple of years ago where Carl Edwards, led the whole chase thing and loses it on the last race. Not the last lap, but on the last race.
Yeah.
Tony Stewart wins 5 races and they tie.
Yeah.
Because Carl Edwards couldn't win one.
Right.
And Carl's got the same thing going right now so far in this chase with himself and Ryan Newman are both playing Mr. Consistency.
That'll work the first and maybe second round, which we're seeing. It's okay. It'll work this. But speaking of Carl Edwards, he is about 25 points. Actually, he's 19 points in front of 8th place. And Ryan Newman is 20 points in front of 8th place. So those guys going into Talladega, this is where Talladega is going to be very interesting because really the only people that are safe are Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick, who have punched their ticket to the next round. Even Kyle Busch, who is 30 points up, if there's an early wreck, he could be eliminated.
Absolutely.
So Talladega is going to be a very interesting race. And honestly, I'm a little worried about Talladega because I don't think it's going to be that good of a race. For the exact reason that I just said, that all of these guys, there's 8 drivers out there, or there's 12 drivers that are all vying for 8 positions. The ones that are inside the chase right now, that are on the positive side of 8th place, those guys are going to race it nice and easy. I don't see them in there mixing it up, trying to go 3 wide, trying to cause anything. And I don't see Matt Kenseth, Brad Keselowski, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr. doing that either. But this is going to make for the most interesting 5 final laps in a race I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, your guys that are in that section with Casey Kane and Carl Edwards and Ryan Newman, those are the ones I expect to be riding around a half lap down.
Yep.
And just hanging out and then get up in the fray with 10, 12 laps to go.
Yeah.
Like you said, you see a green-white checkered in this race coming up, you're going to see a lot of carnage.
Yeah, and there may be several green-white checkers in this one.
They can only do 3.
402-573-0590 is the number to call if you want to get in, weigh in on last night's action. While we got a couple of minutes left in this turn, let's talk about the brawl that did happen. We won't play the he said, she said girly game on the playground of what exactly happened and what caused it. Matt Kenseth was mad at Brad Keselowski for one of the restarts and not cutting him a break. Then Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski on the final restart, what ended up being the green-white checker restart, they got together, and after the race was over with, interviews Brad said that Denny got into him during the cool-down lap, and so Brad got into him in retaliation, and then Brad somehow he dang near took out Matt Kenseth when everyone was coming on the pit road. Matt's big beef was, I was unstrapped. I had my helmet off. I had my Hans device off. I had my belts undone, and this guy clobbers me at 50 miles an hour. And that's something that I kind of reminded, it did kind of shock me back. You're the one that knows that better than anybody with being a former official for NASCAR, that pit road is slower speeds than obviously on the racetrack, but they're still going at a fairly decent breeze.
Absolutely. They're clipping along. I mean, when you're standing still and somebody's going by you a foot away from you at 50 miles an hour, they might as well be going 300.
Yeah. And he clobbered the back of Matt Kenseth's car and hit Tony Stewart. Tony, what is going on here? So he slams it in reverse and does all that front end damage to the 2 car that you saw. Let's head over to the phone lines. Let's talk to Tim in Columbus. Tim, you're on the front stretch. How you doing this morning?
Good, fellas. How are you?
Good. What'd you think of last night's race?
It was exciting.
That was a really exciting race. I didn't expect Charlotte to be that exciting, but it was pretty dang good racing.
Just about as exciting as the Royals baseball game.
What do you think about the post race last night?
That was wild. I didn't get to see the whole thing. I saw it a little bit on the news this morning. I don't know what started the whole thing, but
who knows what started it? Like I said, it's a he said, she said kind of a thing. But do you think NASCAR will fine any of these guys?
Well, they should.
You think so?
Good. Yeah, I think they should. Maybe not points because that's a little too dicey this time of season, but maybe some dollars.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are going to be some monetary fines. There's not going to be any points, so I don't think NASCAR wants to step into it that way. But,
no.
You'll see some fines and probably some probation till the end of the year situations.
Yep. Hey, my question this morning, where is Casey Kane in the whole chase right now?
After last night's finish, Casey Kane is the 8th car that would make it into the chase. He is 31 points behind leader Joey Logano.
But he's got ahead of Matt Kenseth.
Yeah, he's got a 1-point lead over Matt Kenseth.
Okay, well, root for that team because that's my boys. So.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate you calling in and listening.
Yep.
All right, have a good one. I'm kind of surprised that, I said it to you before we got on the show this morning. I hope NASCAR doesn't fine any of these guys because they created this format for more drama, for more excitement, and this is going to be a direct reflection of that. Now, honestly, what Matt did, I think Matt took it a little bit too far with jumping Brad in between the haulers last night. Maybe Matt gets a fine and maybe Brad gets a fine too because he caused all that car damage. But after that, I don't know what. I hope they don't fine him. I hope a conversation during a driver's meeting is all it goes.
Drama on the racetrack's what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want the camera guys having to run around through the garage area and all that type of stuff. I mean, because that's also, it's dark in there, for one thing. I mean, there's a lot that can go on in there that could get ugly. They want the drama on the racetrack. If it would have ended with the bumping and stuff on pit road, might not have had anything happen.
Yeah.
But when it gets outside the cars, NASCAR gets involved.
Moving back to the phone lines, getting your opinions, 402-573-0590. Let's talk to Jim. Jim, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Dan. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Is this Jim Laughlin?
Yep.
You had a good night last night taking Joey Logano, didn't you?
Yep.
That ain't nice.
I screwed up the week before, and I didn't because I was so excited about being down in Kansas that I forgot to.
Well, that happens. But the good news is, as far as official rankings go, you're tied for 4th in the Quaker Steak and Lube $100 gift certificate, so you're not sitting bad for that one.
Well, that's good.
All right, do you want to talk about the fight last night?
I love the race. I just thought I wanted to say I think it should be fines, although I think they should be pretty steep fines. And no points at this point. I don't think you can take points away from people that are chasing a championship. So.
What do you consider a steep fine when these guys are making $20 million a year? I mean, you're going to fine them $1 million?
$1 million. Take $1 million from them.
Ooh, I think
make
that would
hurt.
be because
make them feel it.
Most of the time, these guys are getting $50,000, $75,000 fines.
Yeah, that ain't nothing.
You're right. That ain't nothing. But
and believe it or not, a lot of times the sponsors will step up and pay for that.
Yeah, right. I believe it. Well, make it $1 million and see if they'll pay for that.
They probably will if they like it and they own you.
That's fine if they will. I mean, I think it all goes to the NASCAR charities anyway. So
absolutely.
So, what is it about last night that makes you want to give him the fine? Was it Matt Kenseth going after Brad behind the I kind of felt like it was a cheap shot.
Everything. Well, it was Brad hitting Tony in the pit or in the pit
in the cool down on pit road.
With his belts off, that's an extremely dangerous thing. But they were all bad. Nothing should happen. I mean, you can talk to each other. You can go to the NASCAR hauler. You can go talk to them. And I don't care what you do when you leave the track. And that seems to be kind of the consensus I'm hearing with some of the news media is that what Brad did on pit lane is probably what will get him the fine because there's reporters, there's crew members, there's fans, there's spectators. There is some guests of drivers that are on pit road at that time, and you just can't have that stuff on pit road because that's supposed to be a safe area. That's correct.
Well,
I think we don't want NASCAR turning into WWF. I mean,
right.
And I can guarantee you, Roger Penske's not happy with the whole situation either. I mean, owners don't like that stuff.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy. Thanks a lot for your phone call. Have a good Sunday.
See ya.
Have a good one. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We'll talk to Stan Cisar about the results last night from the Cornhusker Classic at I-80 Speedway for the Nebraska 360 Sprint Cars. This is The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This is Andrew from Kaziski Auto Parts. Kaziski Auto Parts is an insurance-quality used parts supplier that can match your foreign or domestic car or truck needs. If you have a damaged or broke-down car or truck, we guarantee a clean and quality part in next-day fashion. Kaziski Auto Parts, your neighborhood premium recycled parts supplier. Call any Kaziski Auto Parts salesman today by dialing 402-731-4592 or visit us at 5040 I Street in Omaha. Kaziski Auto Parts, our quality used parts will match your car or truck's needs.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food,
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food. Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're working the high line into turn 2 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Turn number 2 brought to you by Kosiski Auto Parts, online at kosiski.com. Quality used parts at an affordable price. You can't beat what you get at Kosiski Auto Parts, and you know you're going to get the right part the first time. Let's head over to the phone lines and check in with Stan Cisar, the man who made the call last night from the Nebraska 360 Sprint Cars at the Cornhusker Classic. Stan, how you doing this morning?
Oh, it's kind of an early morning.
Did you get
this morning? It was a marathon last night, as you well know.
Again? I tell you, with the amount of cars there last night, I unfortunately kind of wimped out at intermission. I don't know if you saw me leaving with my tail between my legs, but
Yeah.
I tried to sneak out so you didn't make fun of me, but well, you get what you take. But anyways, it was about 9:30 last night. There had to have been 250 cars there. I mean,
273 cars, the official count.
Oh my God!
Well, that had a lot to do with there was a big race in Hays, Kansas, and a lot of guys were in the area for that race, and they made the call about 12:30 that they were going to cancel that race yesterday, and it was like the haulers and trucks and trailers just there was like a train from Hays, Kansas to I-80 Speedway, and that probably added that, and the addition of a 33 car, which was the largest of the season SLMR late model field, and 27 360 sprint cars, in addition to probably 40 cars coming up from Hays, plus the cars they had the previous night.
I'm getting a little confused. I'm looking at the results from I-80 last night, and for some reason there's ASCS Sprint B features listed.
Well, there was a B feature with the Nebraska 360 sprints. They took the top 16 cars out of heat race qualifying, 4 heat races plus a B main, and then the 25 lap A feature. And it was a great race. Don Drow Jr. jumped out into the early lead, and he had him covered there for a while. Brian Brown got up into that second spot early on in the going. Billy Alley had a strong run going. About I want to say 16 laps into the race or so, Jason Danley spun up in turn number 1, and unfortunately, Billy Alley collected him and knocked himself out of the race. So that took him from contention. After the restart, it was pretty much a 3-car battle. Daniel Lasowski had moved the one BK car, not the familiar 1M, but it was 1 BK last night, and Lasowski moved up to third, and there was about 6 inches of cushion left coming out. You were talking about turn 2 taking the high line. That was a treacherous line last night. There was about 6 inches of cushion left coming out of turn number 2 before they hit the concrete, over there. And Drought and Brownie running up on the high side, banging the cushion lap after lap. And pretty soon, here comes the dude, and he found some rubber down about 2/3 of the way up the racetrack. And he came like a missile, overhauled both of those guys, and picked up the A feature win. The car was renumbered 1 BK last night. Many years ago, Dean Orth from Lincoln, Nebraska, and Craig Cormack, they co-owned a 410 sprint car that Don Drow Jr. had driven with the World of Outlaws and raced over at Knoxville, Iowa. And Dean unfortunately passed away last week. And kind of a tribute, Mark called me at the last minute. We put some 1 BKs on the car, and Lasowski put it in victory lane. Brian Brown finished in the second spot. Don Jr. hung on for third, and a good run for Justin Henderson. He was in the Gary Swenson 24 BH, and Steve Zomer in the Buffalo Wild Wings 82 rounded out the top 5.
Now, that was the season finale for the Nebraska 360 sprints, am I right?
Right, and actually, Jack Dover was the points leader going in by 114 points. And he had a wedding they had planned after the racing season. The sprints were supposed to be done by now, and they had planned that this was kind of a makeup race for the rained out event from Labor Day weekend. Mm-hmm. And he had planned, he was the best man in a wedding for his longtime crew chief, Will Worthley. And he was the best man. He kept his commitment, went to the wedding last night, and had a substitute driver in his car having some fun. Lance Moss, who was the cousin of his engine builder from North Carolina, came up, drove the car, and finished back toward the backside of the top 10, but he kept the car on all four and delivered it in one piece back to Jack at the end of the night. But this has to be said. Going in now, Trevor Grossenbacher was 114 points back, and Trevor comes up with an 8th place finish, 116 points. He wins the points championship by 2 over Jack Dover, and kind of the same scenario in that ASCS Midwest region. Jack missed a race mid-season and came up second to Billy Alley in that one. And I knew it was unofficial when I was announcing it last night, but the final word came out that Trevor Grossenbacher's the 2000, kind of very much like last year. Tyler Drucke won the points title last year. Same reason. Jack missed a couple races, chased some bigger money races, and missed the Nebraska 360 Series races, and ended up not winning it last year also. But all in all, good season, and they're making plans to forge ahead forward for next year. In some of the other classes, SLMR had their final race of the year, and what a race that was. Josh Krug in car number 4K picked up his first win in the SLMR circuit over Tad Pospisil, and Tad gave him quite a race for quite a while, and a late race restart got Tad and Kyle Burke, and Justin Zeitner was racing Tad really hard for a long time. They had a great race for that second spot, and that allowed Josh to get away toward the end. Josh picked up the win. Tad Pospisil was second. Kyle Burke was third. And with that third place finish, Kyle picked up his second straight race for the Malvern Savings Bank points championship. Justin Zeitner with a good run driving his dad's 62Z, and Al Zeitner finished in the top 5, car number 76. Got to mention Andrew Koziski. Andrew Koziski finished in the 6th spot. Al was 5th. Andrew finished 6th. He had one of his better runs of the season last night.
Yeah, he seems to be just getting a little bit better every single week, finding things on that car to kind of tweak on and make it a little bit better, and hopefully we'll see him back in the SLMR series next year to start to really contend and start knocking off some top 5 finishes.
Grand National late models, Matt Bowler picked up the win, car number 43 over Dave Cook. Jacob Brown, Corey Dumpert finished 4th, and J.G. Rodeman out of races out of Junction Motor Speedway weekly rounded out the top 5. One of the better races of the night, the A-Modified division, looked like it was going to be a snoozer. Dylan Smith was way out in front, car number 95. By the time it ended, everybody ran him down, and I'll tell you what, another lap or two, I think Ken Schrader would have pulled off the win for the second straight night. Kenny Schrader comes up with a second-place finish against our tough area modifieds. Jesse Dennis was 3rd, Kyle Burke finished 4th, and Hunter Marriott came up from Missouri in the 62, rounded out the top 5 in that deal. And you missed Buddy. You snuck out of there early, and you missed Buddy running. Buddy made the A-Main last night in the B-Mod division, but in the feature it was Chris Abelson who double dips. He was actually driving his son's car in the B-Mod class. He picked up the win over Mark Lighting. Jake Neal was in the 3rd spot. Scott Stiskel was 4th, and Jesse Sobbing. So actually, if you look at the top 5 guys in that B-Mod division, all A-Mod or former A-Mod drivers.
And those guys will all be racing tonight as they wrap up action from the from the Cornhusker Classic at I-80 Speedway. Green flag waves at about 5:55. Hats off to I-80 Speedway. They made a promise to the fans to get the show in quick and consistent last night, and they did a fantastic job. I only saw the first half of the show, the heat races, but I was really impressed with getting that many cars through their heat races and getting the cautions cleaned up, and everything moves really smoothly.
Well, it was 10 o'clock, and Joe and I had talked. Joe Kate and I talked. There were still, I think, 5 or 6 B-main events yet to be run, and Joe says we're going to try to run this thing through. They ran the SLMR A feature. And it was about 11:05, I think, when the sprints took to the track for their feature. So they were about an hour late, but they made every effort to try to get the major classes done early. And the grandstand probably half emptied out after the sprint feature, but the diehards hung around till the end.
Yeah, you got, and I like I said, I wimped out after the heat races.
Well, you know something, I can't blame you. It was very cold. It was cold, you know. My son and daughter-in-law were down for a while last night, and they came up and joined us in the booth for a while just to warm up a little bit. But it was a cold evening, but a great night of racing, and a good way for those guys to end the season.
Hey, Stan, do you ever remember a car count like that at I-80 before? I don't.
I don't ever see them getting into the 270s. There's been multiple times in the 240, 250, I think, at the big races like that when they run all the classes together. But that was probably I think one of the bigger car counts that we've ever done, and it was race after race after race, and I'd have to go back and figure out, but I'll bet you 35, 40 races, and we kind of shared the announcer booth a little bit. I was just going to do the sprint car series. An old friend of mine from over in Iowa, Jerry Van Sickle, came over, and he and I called a couple races and give Joe Proctor a little break because it was going to be a marathon for him too.
And this is kind of I really think this is a testament to the good work that Joe and Steve are doing out at that track with the way they've been able to grow this track over the last, even the 3 years that I've been involved with them, and going on 4 years now. Just the growth. I mean, they've seen great car counts. The track, that's the first thing I talked to Kenny Schrader about at Lakeside Speedway. I said, why do you keep coming back all the way up to I-80 Speedway? And he goes, those guys give you a two-groove driver's track every time, and that's hard to find.
It was every bit of two grooves and then some. In the stock car feature last night, guys were racing 4, sometimes 5 wide in one of the better races of the night. It was, like I said, it was some great racing going on, and next year more of the same. I-80 is kind of established itself as the specials track, the big races. It does very well as opposed to Eagle, which has, we talk about the Eagle Weekly Show all the time as being probably one of the top weekly shows in the nation. And on the other hand, I-80 Speedway, man, they hit the home runs on the specials.
Yeah.
Well, and they've learned their track prep too. I noticed that. I mean, at the Silver Dollar Nationals, you got a lot of horsepower to tear that track up, and they have gotten the track prep down.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve Koziski has kind of taken that thing over, and along with a guy by the name of Mike Rusko. And Mike used to work in that area of expertise, and he was a longtime crew member with Steve when they raced the late model. And they've kind of taken on that track prep responsibility. Speaking of Steve Koziski, I'd like to mention the fact that next Friday night, Steve's going to be one of our 7 inductees in the Nebraska Auto Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That's going to be down in Lincoln at the Speedway Motors Complex at the Lincoln Firefighters Social Hall. And that ought to be a great time down there. There's still a few tickets available if anybody's interested in going. Steve Koziski, J.J. Riggins, Bob Westfall, who was an ex-drag racer, one of the nation's premier engine builders with Westmar Racing Engines, and a lot of great guys getting inducted in. It's always a good time. You get to tour the Smith Museum, and Steve following his brother Joe, his dad, and his grandfather into the Hall of Fame.
I tell you, it seems about every 6 months one of those Koziskis gets inducted into another Hall of Fame.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you have a career that spans the amount of years and the commitment to the sport that family has had over the years, it's pretty hard not to give them the rewards that they deserve.
Well, for the longest time, I mean, Steve was one of only 3 people with 7 NASCAR championship rings, along with Dale Sr. and Richard Petty. I know there's been a couple guys that have broke that now. They're in the Northeast, but yeah, well-deserved.
Yep, for sure. So we'll have a good time down there next Friday night, and that about brings my race season, I think, to a close,
Well, Stan, we've talked to you so many times on the show, but we've never really talked about your real business, what really keeps things going, which is Action Signs. And so fill me in a little bit. Do you mostly work with drivers, or is there a lot of businesses out there that you also help to wrap cars with?
Well, our business is primarily, it's commercial signage, although we all enjoy racing, and we're all involved in racing in one way or the other, and so we enjoy doing the race cars. At one time, it was probably a little bit bigger portion of our business than it is now, but due to the fact that there's a sign shop on every corner and sign machines in everybody's garage, it seems like anymore. But we get our share, and we take pride in the cars that we do, and it's always great. Like Mark Birch calls me Friday evening, and we got the tribute decals for the 1BK car done in time, and kind of pride ourselves into taking care of guys when they need stuff at the last minute and give them good service. And we've been around about 28, 29 years, and got a few more years to go yet before we hit retirement.
That's good to hear, buddy. Hey, we always do appreciate you joining us on the show. You help us out a lot, and we can't thank you enough.
I'm sure we'll talk a lot more over the winter months. And, of course, we got a big show coming up first of the year. So.
Oh, we got the Legends of the Dirt series that we're working on right now, so I'll need you for that a couple of times.
Hey, one more little quick bit of information. It was announced this week that coming up in May at Eagle Raceway, the first race of the new inaugural Midwest Outlaw Sprint Series, which is a 410 World of Outlaws type sprint car series with a lot of very well-known names: Brian Brown, Wayne Johnson, Danny Lasowski, Terry McCarl. Those guys are going to sign on as being the full-time competitors on that circuit. The very first event of the year is going to be held at Eagle Raceway on Friday night, May the 7th. It's going to be first day of a 2-day show. It ends up the second night over at Knoxville Raceway. That's going to kick things off over there. And if a driver can sweep that weekend, there's a $20,000 on the bonus on the line. So it's going to revitalize 410 sprint car racing in the area and bring the World of Outlaws type shows around on a little more often.
That's awesome. You said that's May 7th at Eagle Raceway?
May 7th at Eagle, May 8th at Knoxville, and it's a brand new series being put together by a former World of Outlaws car owner, Todd Quiring, and he's putting a lot of good people in place, and hopefully I'll get to be a part of that. That's still to be known, but my hat's in the ring on that deal, too. And the nice thing about it is all the races, with the exception of 4 races at Knoxville, are going to be not on a Saturday night.
Wow. All right, Stan. Always do appreciate it.
Always, man. Good to see you.
Yep. Have a good one, buddy. Thank you so much.
You
Take
too.
care, Stan.
See ya.
He was giving us recaps of the Nebraska 360s last night at I-80 Speedway and also ran down all the action for us, so we do appreciate that. There is still one night of racing left to go at I-80 Speedway. A-Mods, B-Mods, Grand Nationals, Stock Cars, Hobby Stocks, and Hornets. It'll be a complete show with all classes. Plus, there'll be a last chance bash. And I think I was talking to you about it, Dirk. This is pretty much it. We're done with dirt racing after tonight. There's a couple of specials here and there, but for the most part...
What are you going to do with yourself?
Listen, I find things to do all the time. I'll probably end up going back to fixing computers like I do most winters. Green flag at 5:55 tonight. The Cornhusker Classic wraps up. You can get tickets at the gate. I believe they're $20 to get in. You get to see all those classes. It's a fantastic night. Get out there and enjoy it. To heck with the cold. I say that, but I wimped out last night. But get out there and enjoy some final racing. We'll be back at turn number 3 to talk NASCAR news and notes and a little bit more. We'll be back on the front stretch.
This week's Young Gun on the front stretch is Slammin' Sammy Nordquist. At just 9 years old, Sam is in his 3rd year of racing, starting in cage karts at Little Sunset and winning several features in his rookie year. The highlight of Sam's rookie season came at the Lancaster Event Center for the annual Turkey Chase. Sam claimed the A feature win despite causing damage to his suspension during a heat race earlier the same day. He opened the next season with a bang by winning the Icebreaker Challenge at Mini E, and Sam just kept rolling as he went on a 7-race winning streak between Mini E and Little Sunset. Outside of racing, Sam loves to play football for Papillion Monarchs and basketball at the School of Hoops. He wants to thank his great sponsors, like his uncle, Senator Jeremy Nordquist, Danielson Equipment Supplier, and Quality Towing and Repair. Make sure to keep your eye out at Little Sunset Speedway and Mini E for Slammin' Sammy Nordquist. He's this week's Young Gun on the front stretch.
The 7th annual Racing with the Stars is just around the corner. Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs from noon to 4 on Sunday, November 2nd. You can race with your favorite drivers and celebrities, all in the spirit of raising money for the holiday horsepower drive. Race against drivers like Shaylee Bade, Clint Benson, ARCA driver Will Wolf, and so many more. The 7th annual Racing with the Stars kicks off at noon with silent auction available until 3:30 p.m. More information is on Facebook at 7th Annual Racing with the Stars.
Time to grab another tear-off and make your move. We're headed into turn 3 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting.
Slammin' Sammy Nordquist was our young gun for today. If you have a young gun out there, and basically the only rules are they young and do they drive a dirt car? Because we want to feature them. They don't necessarily have to be past champions. They don't have to be these big winners. They don't have to be, the next Jesse Sobbing or Kenny Schrader or anything like that. We just want to feature these young kids. Send us an email, frontstretch590@gmail.com, and we'll get you featured as we have a couple of weeks left for the Young Guns. Also, feel free to give us a call. Give us your opinion on last night's action. 402-573-0590. tell you, it's a long ways up to my desk. I had to run up there because in turn 3 I wanted to talk about some of the NASCAR rule changes for 2015. Dirk Huston's joining me in the studio today, filling in for Buddy, and I wanted to take advantage of that because Dirk, you used to be a NASCAR Camping World Truck Series official. You actually officiated the first couple of races at Kansas Speedway. So I wanted to talk about a couple of these. We briefly talked about some of the rule changes. There's a lot of different enhancements to the rule package for next year. It seems to be centered a lot around slowing these cars down a little bit. The one that's getting the most attention is the horsepower comes down to 725 horsepower via a tapered spacer. Now, you were talking to me and said that's actually not going to be the biggest contributor to slowing these cars down.
No, I don't think so. I think pulling a couple inches off the spoiler like they're talking about, taking away that downforce and loosen the cars up a little bit. But again, with the speed coming down with the lack of horsepower, it's hard telling exactly how much difference that's going to make because if you're going slower, you don't need as much spoiler. Mm-hmm. I think if they really wanted to slow them down and make it interesting, they need to pull that splitter off the front. They've just made the front so aero-dependent. That's why it's so hard to pass on some of these tracks because you lose the nose or, they always talk about the aero tight or the aero push. If they'd loosen that front end up a little bit, you wouldn't see quite that much of that.
Another one of the kind of interesting rule changes is the optional driver adjustable track bar. It's talking to some of these drivers at Kansas, it seemed to be kind of a 50-50. Some of them, they like it, but other ones, they basically said, you know what? I'm dumb as it is. You shouldn't be putting any more knobs in the car.
Yep, that's one more thing I can screw up, And the bad part is with everything else they've got going on, if they're driving down the back stretch and they reach over and put a few cranks on that thing and they don't tell the crew chief.
Yeah.
The crew chief's
coming in for the next pit stop, making adjustments based on 2 turns on the track bar ago.
Yeah.
And it can really screw things up. So the communication level is going to have to be there. I got to imagine that's not going to be something the driver's just going to be saying, well, I'm going to do this and do that. He's probably going to be radioing and saying, hey, I'm tight. And the crew chief's going to say, okay, let's try that. Why don't you do a quarter turn on that track bar knob or, this or that. So you would hope that they would still run those things through the crew chief. But in the heat of these races, those guys are laser focused and just reach over there and crank that thing a little bit and not say anything. That will throw them off quite a bit.
And the other thing is I think a lot of that adjusting, I don't know if you'll see a whole lot of adjusting during the green flag portion of the race, but if they've got the deal where they just came in and got 4 tires and a full load of fuel, they came out and on the restart or 2 or 3 laps into the run, there's a caution. They might take a little time there to make an adjustment or something, but I don't think the inside adjustable track part is going to be a major player in the game. Like I said, that spoiler's going to be big, and taking away the horsepower will be interesting because it should drop the RPMs on the motors some, which is going to definitely help the reliability.
Yeah.
But they start doing that, the engine builders will figure something else out to make up for it.
Yep. 402-573-0590 to give your opinion on the 2015 rule changes. Granted, we're still in 2014. We've got a lot of racing left to go, but wanted to get these out to you ahead of time so we could have a little bit of time to talk about it with somebody who was a NASCAR official and had to ding these guys. Did you ever send anybody to the penalty box?
Oh yeah, it was real interesting. Toyota, when they first came into NASCAR, it came in the Truck Series first, and we had a big test session in Daytona, like they used to do every January, which I guess now they're not even going to do that testing anymore. And we got down there, and it rained all weekend, so they had very little track time. They got a little bit on the track on Sunday that time, but when we came back for Daytona for the race and we started hanging templates on these cars, all the Toyotas were so puttied up in the front of the car, in the truck, that I found it on a fluke. Just one of them things that's like, that just don't look right, and stuck my head inside the fender, and there was about 3 inches of putty in the nose of this Toyota. Well, then we got to looking at all of them, and Toyota's very big on the team-oriented thing, so all of them were exactly the same. And Rick Wren, who is now the general manager for Kyle Busch Motorsports, at that time was working with the Truck Series, I believe with Bill Davis's teams. And he come over and he just looked at me. He goes, "You don't want a Toyota in this race, do you?" And I said, "I don't care who's in the race. Just be legal."
Yeah.
And we had those guys out there till midnight, the first day of templates, grinding that putty out of the nose. So, yeah, they weren't happy.
Wow.
I can't remember the guy that was with Michael Waltrip. He come over and had his cell phone, and we're recording this. What exactly do you want me to do? Do exactly what the rule book says. That's all.
They could, and because there was a lot of animosity when they entered the sport. There's still a lot of animosity.
Well, the biggest animosity deal was the fact that they didn't have a pushrod engine. So they took the Ford, the Chrysler, and the Chevy and looked at all of them and designed their own motor. That Toyota motor is really quite the work of art.
Yeah.
It's got very short push rods, so it's designed for the RPM. It's got 9 cam bearings, which is unheard of, and they're as big around as a beer can. The motor's designed to turn a ton of RPM, and NASCAR just decided, well, we'll give everybody this gear and this chip, and took all that away.
You touched on a little bit ago that the other big rule change that a lot of people were talking about is the doing away with team-initiated testing. A couple of years ago, NASCAR said you can have 4 tests at a track, and so they would. So that was something that's always been kind of interesting to watch as a media person, but I don't think it was very interesting for fans. But it was very beneficial for a lot of these teams to be able to go out and test. And now NASCAR has had to come out with some of the rule changes and said, well, nobody's testing at Homestead. That's going to be a free-for-all race. We're not going to let you guys save a test and test on Homestead. So a lot of these teams are testing at Phoenix to get one last shot to make it into the Final Four. But no more testing in 2015 unless it's NASCAR or Goodyear sanctioned.
Well, the big deal there was you've got your multi-car teams, Hendrick and Roush and Gibbs. They can send, basically, if you got 4 tests per car, that's 16 tests for Hendrick. But for AJ Allmendinger's 1-car outfit, that's only 4 tests.
Well, but the actual rule for that was that it was 4 tests per organization. It didn't matter how many cars you had.
So they changed that again then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because they didn't want it to benefit the 4-car organizations and hurt the single-team organizations. But what ended up actually happening was that Hendrick would pay other Chevy organizations, single-car organizations, to go and test at tracks that Hendrick couldn't go and test at because he'd used up his 4. So it was a monetary thing for the smaller teams like AJ Allmendinger and JTG Darty Racing. But talking to some of the drivers, Kyle Larson was kind of a surprising one. Apparently, he hates testing. And so he was all about this testing ban. He said, that's the most boring thing you can do is go out there and test at one of these tracks.
Oh, it is. There's not too many drivers that like it. There's some that, like Brad Keselowski a couple years ago when he was really trying to learn how to road course race.
Mm-hmm.
He loved testing at the road courses because he was learning stuff and he really improved. But as far as driving around in a circle all day, it does get old, And the track conditions can change so much if the temperature's, 10 degrees hotter or colder, or the track surface is hotter or colder, so the test might not mean anything.
That is Dirk Huston. He is joining us today on the front stretch, filling in for Buddy, who is resting and relaxing after last night's race at I-80 Speedway. We'll be back in turn number 4 to wrap it all up. This is the front stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he's talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at 402-731-4592. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Get ready for the victory lap as we make our way into Turn 4 on the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Online at joeskarting.com.
And don't forget to send us an email for your young gun that we can feature, frontstretch590@gmail.com. Let's talk Pick'em's contest. Last night, the big winner was Mike Carlson taking the 4-car of Kevin Harvick, getting the win, getting the full points payout for the night, 48 points. So he is now your leader for the Quaker Steak and Lube $100 tab. We're going to be throwing a big season-ending party to thank all the people that were involved in the Pick'em's contest all year long, and just kind of have some fun. I mean, we're going to do it for Homestead, so we're going to crown a champion. We're going to go down to Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch, and we're working on some prizes. We've got a couple of things lined up for you guys. I got some autographed Kyle Larson hero cards and some autographed AJ Allmendinger hero cards also. So some fun things. Everybody's welcome. You don't have to be a part of the Pick'em's contest to come out and have a good time. We're going to have door prizes, and we're going to have some great specials. But as of the Quaker Steak and Lube gift certificate, Mike Carlson is the leader by 5 points over John Dumpert and Leanna Jensen, who Jacina, who just joined yesterday for the Charlotte race. Jim Brennan, who we've talked to a couple of times, been a big help in the dirt scene for me in the show. And then Dirk, you and Jim Laughlin, all three of you guys are tied at 40 points.
Yeah, I can eat a lot of wings with $100.
And drink a little bit of beer, too. They've got Oktoberfest on tap right now, and I'm trying to make sure I clean out their stock for them.
You better be nice to whoever wins then, right?
Exactly. The overall Pick'em's contest, the season-long Pick'em's contest, Sonia Worth is just absolutely walking away with it. In fact, I tallied it up earlier this week and sent over the new numbers. If you're in first place, after every week, you get 2 free races from Joe's Karting. Second place and third place both get a free race. Sonia has been in first place since, I believe, week 3 or 4 of the contest and has never relinquished it. She now has 53 races coming her way.
Well, you get into these type of contests and whatnot, and a lot of it is luck. Yeah. I mean, you can know everything and anything about racing, but as you know, back, what was it, the Martinsville race with the Silver Dollar National stuff coming around, and I picked Jimmy Johnson because he's on the front row, and he finished 42nd,
It really does. I mean, to take it, for instance, Buddy went last year. We did the contest between me, Andrew, and Buddy, and we just had fun with it. It was just something to kind of talk about on the air, and it was to really kind of work out some of the kinks for releasing it to the fans this year. And then, so Buddy this year decided, well, I'm not going to go with my picks. He went with an online fantasy team, and he's sitting 12th. He hasn't missed a race. He made all of his picks earlier in the season. So it just goes to show you that even the biggest statistical information can't account for a blown tire or a lost lug nut or a loose tire or what was it, Denny Hamlin a couple of weeks ago had that fuel pickup issue or the fueling issue where the fueling system wouldn't take the fuel, and so they had to take it behind the wall and do a bunch of repairs, and he lost 6-7 laps, and whoever took him that week was SOL, even though it was a good track for him. But the Pick'em's contest continues. We are kind of considering a couple of rule changes. When Buddy and I were down in Kansas, we kind of bounced a couple of ideas off of each other, and I think, what do you think, as a fan of the contest and as a participant, what do you think of implementing the elimination grid as NASCAR has for the final 10 races of the season?
As far as you're going to drop contestants off?
They won't necessarily get dropped off, but they'll be eliminated from winning the championship. Much like, AJ Allmendinger, this is what I was against it until AJ kind of pointed something out to me when we were talking to him, was that he's not in the chase for the championship anymore, but he could still finish 5th because when drivers get eliminated, they drop back down to 2,000 points with their points they've allocated. So they'll all be reshuffled depending on their finishes. And then, so when we finish Talladega next weekend, the 8 drivers will be back up. They'll be given up to 3,000 points, I believe, or 4,000 points. And then those that get eliminated will drop back down to 2,000. So the gap between those that are still in there and those are out will be increased, just to make sure that there isn't any funky things that go on. And then those that drop out, they now aren't locked in to 12th through 8th. They still have to battle the other 43 cars to stay within a certain points paying position.
Well, but when you get into the overall scheme of things for the year, I mean, there was no way, AJ was going to be in the top 15 or Eric Almirola was going to be. So their realistic chance of finishing 5th is very, very slim.
Right.
If they were going to have enough points to finish 5th, they were probably going to have to win a race or two in the chase,
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it's kind of a little bit misleading.
Honestly, I'm really impressed with AJ's finishes. What he took home 12th last night at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Was doing well at Kansas. I believe he had an issue. No, he finished 11th at Kansas also. So he's, that organization is definitely turning things around, and they're doing what they need to do, which was, when he came on board, let's get top 20 finishes. Now let's get top 15 finishes. Now they're starting to work on top 10s. That's easy to say, but once you break into that top 10 finishes, that's a lot harder of a field to break into than you would think.
Oh, AJ can drive. I mean, he's very he kind of got refocused after his own admitted mistake. He blamed nobody for getting kicked out for a year basically. He knew he messed up, and but since he's come back, he's really refocused, and he's a super nice guy. I mean, you got to interview him, so you've met him, and very personable and likes to have a good time. But when he gets behind the wheel, he's all about business, and he thinks he's that's when you look at some of the stuff that went on last night. Guys weren't thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I just go back to it. I was really shocked to see Matt Kenseth act like that. He's usually a very calm, cool, collect guy. He gets mad and he throws his words around, but I was shocked to see that. But another news note I forgot to get to in turn number 3 before we moved on. Congratulations to Sam Hornish Jr. Big announcement earlier this week was that Sam took over driving the number 9 car for Richard Petty Motorsports when Marcus Ambrose leaves at the end of the year. We talked about it when we were at Kansas or Iowa Speedway when PJ was filling in, and Buddy and I have talked about it a couple of times. Sam is too good of a driver to be a part-time nationwide driver. And that was asked of him in the post-race press conference when he won the race at Iowa Speedway for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the 54 car. Why are you a part-time driver? And he said, well, I'm looking for the right organization. I don't have the time left in my career to mess around with helping other organizations come up. He was really looking for a sound organization. And, Richard Petty Motorsports, they show signs every once in a while of being a competitive organization. So hopefully Sam can come and kind of add that next ingredient, what they need, because Eric's doing really well, finishing consistently. He made it into the chase this year. Marcus almost made it into the chase this year with that win, but he lost out to A.J. Allmendinger in that Watkins Glen race. But so congratulations to Sam. That'll be great to see him. And then there was controversy over the 9 car because all the fans of Bill Elliott want the 9 car to be saved for Chase Elliott when Chase eventually comes up and races for Hendrick Motorsports. But Richard Petty Motorsports came out and said, nope, we're keeping the 9. That's our car. That's our number. We're keeping the 9.
Well, and Jack Roush is bringing the 6 car back.
That'll be cool.
Yeah,
that was his flagship car, wasn't it?
Oh, originally, yeah. Mark Martin drove it. I mean, for all those years. But they're going to bring the 6 back, and I believe Trevor Bain's going to be in that car.
Thank you to all of you for joining us today on the Front Stretch. Thank you to Craig for pushing the buttons. If you missed any part of the show today, or if you want to go back and listen to any of our shows, you can find it on the Joe's Karting YouTube page. You can also make sure and email us frontstretch590@gmail.com to get involved in any kind of the contests we do.
Hey, Dan, one thing real quick. I know all the local racers know who Craig Preble is. I mean, guy is pretty good dirt track racer here locally. Tied for the National Wayland Weekly Series Championship a couple of years ago and lost it on a tiebreaker, similar to what Carl Edwards did to Tony Stewart. But he was hurt real bad in a swimming accident this summer, and they've got a fundraiser coming up. It's on November 8th. It's in the evening. It's a Saturday night from 6:30 to 10:30. It's over at St. James Church on 90th Street, just a couple blocks south of Fort. All kinds of silent auction items. I don't know if they're going to do a spaghetti feed or exactly what all they've got on there, but they've doing a good job. They had one fundraiser already, had a lot of neat stuff, and had Doug McDermott jersey for auction and all kinds of autograph stuff from Tom Osborne, and Dave Remington had some stuff there. The electrical workers, because Craig's an electrician, put that one on. But, again, it's a real good deal, a real good cause. Craig's a great guy. You ought to come out and try and support the effort.
What was the name of the Facebook page you were talking about again?
I believe this one, they got listed under Road to Recovery. The first one was Pit Stop for Preble, was where they did the first one through the electrician's unit.
All right. We will post that on our Front Stretch Facebook page so that way you guys can keep up to date with all that information. Thank you so much, Dirk, for joining us. We always do appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
And we'll be back next weekend to break down Talladega Super Speedway. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The 7th annual Racing with the Stars is just around the corner. Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs from noon to 4 on Sunday, November 2nd. You can race with your favorite drivers and celebrities, all in the spirit of raising money for the holiday horsepower drive. Race against drivers like Shaylee Bade, Clint Benson, ARCA driver Will Wolf, and so many more. The 7th annual Racing with the Stars kicks off at noon with silent auction available until 3:30 p.m. More information is on Facebook at 7th Annual Racing with the Stars.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.